me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello. Hi, everybody. 5 o'clock on a Friday. Time for another episode of Cello Chat. This week, I am really thrilled to have on the program Ethan Clay. Ethan, I'm looking forward to picking your brain about a variety of things that you do. But first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to meet you. And I'm excited to talk a lot about cello, and I'm very passionate about cello and a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about today. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Tremendous. Then that makes two of us. All right. Well, hey, so yesterday we had Mike Block as our featured guest artist for our cello day. And as I'm sure you know, he does a lot of non-classical playing on the cello and makes it look easy and makes it look fun. So in the course of, the degree to which I think probably all instruments, all musicians poke around on the internet for things that catch our eye, the first and foremost thing was your video of what's going through my mind during a solo, which is, I mean, it's just great. And in some ways, anybody who thinks that, oh no, doing a solo is not for me. In some ways, like even just walking them through the thought process is really cool. But maybe I think I'll come back to that at the end so that we kind of come full circle. But first of all, I want to know, I like to ask this of everybody. How did you get started, particularly with the cello? And then what was your path that took you to where you are now?
Yeah. So, like this is like a whole story because my story on cello is kind of like different because I didn't start off like I started in public school. Unit 5, it's like I started in Bloomington Normal. I remember instrument petting zoo day. I saw, I actually originally wanted to pick the violin because it's like everyone's like, oh, I know the violin, everyone knows the violin. And then I saw somebody play the cello and I was like, that instrument's big, I want to play it. That was literally the reason why I picked the instrument. It wasn't because like I listened to some recording of like Yo-Yo Ma or anything. Like no, it was the biggest instrument. And when I first started playing it, I was just kind of playing it. I took lessons as well. I don't know if you're familiar with ISU String Project.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in that program for many years. I was in the Dolce and Allegro, all those programs, and I really enjoyed those programs because, specifically that program, because I remember when I first started, they were a little bit farther along than when I was at the school because we were doing essential elements at the school, and then we were playing like orchestra pieces with different parts and stuff, so that was really exciting. But as I went on the cello, I just kind of just played it. I was in middle school, just kind of played it. Then I had my first audition, like ever in my life, and that was a big turning point, because when I first, I was like playing Suzuki Book 3 or something. Like I was way behind like a lot of people at that time, and I didn't know it. So I went into this audition like about to play, and the audition like went like pretty badly, and it actually went so badly that as a high schooler freshman, I had to play in a group of middle schoolers. And I'm not going to lie, like, that would make a lot of people quit. And I almost did. But the thing that kept me going was like, hey, play this instrument for like 5 or 6 years. And I never really put like the time that is needed to be able to be like great at it. So why not try practicing and everything? I got a new teacher. And this teacher like took me to the next level. Like he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and that kind of propelled me to where I am. I started to fall in love with music because at this time I'd moved to Louisiana, so I was with the Louisiana Youth Orchestra with David Torrance and the Baton Rouge Symphony Orchestra. I was down there, and they have great youth programs for orchestra as well. But I just remember being down there, I just kind of practiced and I ended up like flourishing. And yeah, it just kind of all happened in like 4 years. It was kind of crazy. My growth was very big on those years, and I've just been playing ever since, and I love playing cello. So now I'm
Excellent.
kind of like trying to figure out my voice on it. So
Sure. Well, how'd you end up at Indiana?
yeah, so IU, funny story. So when I was deciding where I wanted to go, I had taken trial lessons with some of the teachers I did prior. But IU, I didn't. I just heard of the program and I was really interested in what they were doing. This was right around the time. I don't know if you're familiar with Jacob Collier at all,
Yes.
but the guy who transcribes all this stuff, June Lee, like he's an IU grad, and that really caught my attention. And I did some research into the school and everything. Um, I auditioned, and then I pretty much got in, and which I was really shocked because at the time, I don't know, like I had really bad imposter syndrome, all that type of stuff, basic, that happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I got to meet Peter Stumpf through a Zoom meeting because this was COVID. So we talked and we got to meet, and I remember just growing a lot in the trial lesson that we had. He had me thinking about things that I didn't even really think about, like breaking down shifting and stuff like that, like very technical stuff that I'll get into later. But yeah, that's how I ended up at IU.
All right. All right. And in music education, which is very cool. Why music education for you?
Yeah, music ed. I'm not going to lie. When I first, uh, I wasn't always. I always wanted to be a performer.
Hmm.
For the longest time, and then I had a orchestra teacher who was my mentor that really like changed my life, and I saw how these music teachers really changed my life, and I was like, hey, I want to do that. So when because I applied to some schools performance, some schools music ed. I got into IU, got into their music ed program, and I just kind of went with it. And at first, like it was difficult, and it was probably because I wasn't like the only teaching that you get when you're in school is like practicum and all that stuff. Like you go in and like it wasn't until student teaching that I was like, hey, I really love this. Like when you're really in the classroom, when you're really in the school, and you're actually learning how to teach, like it kind of keeps you at on your toes, which is like probably why I like it so much because I really like improvisation stuff like that. Of course, you have to plan. Of
Yeah.
course, like don't get me wrong, I write lesson plans, I do all that, but like it's just like that type of um, I don't know. It's just like that happening is what is what I love about it, and also like the connections that you form as well while teaching.
Excellent. So I know you perform and you teach privately. Do you also have a school then that you're the orchestra director of?
Yeah, so right now I'm not actually an orchestra director yet, but
Okay.
so I teach orchestra and theory at the People's Music School right now. Are you familiar with that program at all?
I've heard of it. I'm not that's the end of it though.
Yeah, so it's like
Certified.
this program in Chicago, and it gives kids an opportunity to learn music for free. It has a general music program, then has an instrumental program, band and orchestra, and choir as well, and I think jazz. And the kids like they don't have to pay tuition, anything. They just get these lessons, and it really transforms their lives because they have opportunities to audition at things like Blue Lake, music festivals. They get scholarships, stuff like that. So I've been involved with that. I kind of teach like beginner, so like getting the kids set up on the instrument and getting them starting fundamentals, which I'm not gonna lie, it's very difficult. It's very different from like when they're really experienced and you have to kind of like show them like the artistic side of playing instead of the technical. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, your YouTube videos, two
Mm.
things come to mind when I hear that you're teaching beginners that I mean, I'm thinking is great. And one of them is that you play very rhythmically, and every beginner needs really grounded, in all the rhythmicity of all our motions. And then you have a really relaxed bow hold, super relaxed bow hold. Have you always, or did that come over time?
I credit that to my teacher Stumpf because
All
he
right.
really helped me. Like it took so long for me to get a good bow hold,
Hmm.
it was trial and error. But one exercise, I never did open strings for like the longest time. But then when I started doing that, like I noticed that like my bow hand just became more flexible, and I started to be able to like flex the joints and the fingers and stuff like that. So I do this and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
different exercises to really free that up. But like I can show you a little bit of this warm up that I do.
Great, great.
Yeah, I usually just start like C, and I try to go as slowly as possible without like stopping like this. And just go as slowly to really get that projection. And then I play both the strings at the same time. And I don't know why you feel more resistance. So when you go to the G string, you apply the same like pressure. It's like you apply the same pressure, the same weight from the C string to the D, not to the D string, but to the G string, and so on. And I don't know why I do that a lot too. So that helped as well. Yeah, I credit that warm up for my relaxed bow hold for sure. So
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Some of my students I know will uh, jokingly accuse me of asking you to say work on open strings because I'm always trying to get them. The left hand can be so distracting.
mm,
When we're playing with both hands, the right hand just, if we're not careful, does not get anywhere near our attention. So I love that. I love that you do that. And then another thing, so back to the you called it the People's School.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, the
And
People's
you
Music School. Yeah,
okay, right, right, thank you. And you have something in your bio too about the outreach, about uplifting people through music.
mm,
I think there's an awful lot of us musicians that really we believe in the power of music. It's had a big effect on us, and we want to do kind of just about everything we can to help the profession flourish and to help people connect to what music can do for them as well. Do you have, I mean, obviously, I'm just kind of putting in my words this idea of the importance of the outreach, but what is it that the connecting and uplifting communities through music means to you?
yeah. So when I started to go to this school or teach at the school, one of the things that stuck out to me was that like none of these kids had music. None of the kids had music, and also none of the kids knew like musicians or composers or anything like that. And that stuck out to me. Me being a person who kind of grew up with all the like music and all the classical tradition and everything. I think it's very important if we want classical music to survive. I think it's very important that we kind of get outreach and to really expose these kids to classical music. One of the cool things that our school did was take the kids to a trip to see the Chicago Symphony, and they loved it. Of course, like some of them were like not too enthused about it because when kids don't have the attention span sometimes, for sure. But they some of the kids loved it, and they were like, I remember this one kid was like, I want to play the trumpet. I want to play the trumpet, and it's just like seeing things like that is what makes me want to like. This is why I do what I do, because like seeing like how music has affected me like being able to give that to somebody else is an honor to me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. All right. So one of the running things with this series, whenever I have a guest on who at least comes across as being totally comfortable in the improvisation, in the jazz idiom, I mean, for example, right now in my studio, I have some people who totally do not shy away from chances to solo, but it's still kind of, you know what I mean? You just see the eyes widen sometimes on some people, like, uh-oh, as opposed to looking at it as something that is fun, and
Mm.
you clearly have fun with it. So, I mean, how do you? Obviously I don't want to put words in your mouth about that. How do you approach jazz improvisation on the cello? How did you come into it, and how do you teach it to your students?
Yes, of course. So, how I got into jazz improvisation on cello, like I listen to a lot of jazz, and I think listening is a big deal because when you listen, you get a lot of ideas. You hear a lot more. You're able to learn how to respond to other instruments because I feel like jazz is something that's a lot more than just like soloing, but it's also responding and like listening. Like you got to be on your toes kind of to really hear what's going on. Also knowing the theory as well. I don't think like you should use theory to create for sure, but I think you should use theory to kind of understand and
Hmm.
analyze so you know exactly like you know how the music works, but you're not held by it. Like you're
Yeah.
not you
Yeah.
got you know what I mean? So I really do think that I really do think theory is very important as it helps me get ideas. It helps me be able to transition through ideas. And whenever I do hear like a note, I pick it up because I think of it in a very theory way, and I do credit that to the fact that I do know jazz piano,
Mm.
and that helps a lot. Being able to think about it very theoretically, so I do think a little bit of that is important too, like kind of learning jazz as kind of a whole, but it doesn't have to get that technical as well.
Yeah.
But I do recommend it. And then also one last thing is scales. Like scales are super important, especially in jazz.
In everything.
Yes, and everything as well as in, like intonation, all that stuff too. But um, and like especially if you know where a key center is, like if it's like I don't know C, right? It's in the key of C, and you know that like oh I want to play like a mixolydian or something. Like as I think in like kind of like modes and stuff like that. If I want to play like a mixolydian, I would be like oh I just play like a B flat major scale over the C. Like just knowing the scale like helps it kind of simplify it. So you're not constantly like what note do I play next? Oh I just play a scale. So scales like really like help a lot when it comes to improv. So I really emphasize learning scales and theory as
Great.
well.
Since you have your cello there, would you mind demonstrating, an example like that?
Yeah. So like um yeah, so when like first of all when I first get the cello, I do my scales and I do like all 12 keys, major, minor. So like when you do encounter that, and then let's see, what song can I do as a backing track? Because I do have iReal Pro. If you've never heard of that, it's a good app to use to if you're really trying to learn jazz. Um, let's do C Jam. Not in D major. In C major. Okay, there we go. So like, for example, like C, right? C Jam blues. The thing says I also like you gotta know how to learn how to read the charts, the lead sheets, because that does help a lot as well.
Yeah.
When you play, like for example, C7, right? C7 is a dominant 7 chord. Sometimes I'll just play the arpeggio. I accidentally added D in there, but and then I just kind of play around with it to a degree. Like I don't. You have to kind of practice like the technique stuff, and then after you do that, you can just kind of have fun, play what's in your mind. And I always recommend like trying to find your own voice on your instrument, because if you're able to express yourself like through your instrument using the stuff that you do know, it like helps. It sounds more convincing, like not convincing, but yeah, more convincing actually.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes it could not sound convincing.
Okay. Well, I know there'll be some people watching this who, it's like if improvisation, especially for us bowed string instruments, maybe is kind of high on the fear factor for a number of people. A number then another thing that's similarly high is music theory. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And so I'm just kind of curious because you had a Suzuki background, but then also play piano. So, like, to what extent do you think that you hear the theory and then you know how to find those notes on the piano or how to write them down or whatever, or that you visualize them? You know what I mean? Because some people
Yeah.
seem to be more decidedly more visual or more oral, but you're talking about it as though there's no friction between those things for you. How do you do that?
Yeah, so relating the theory to the technique of the cello is what helps a lot. Like for example, like if you there's like the cello is really interesting because there's certain like kind of like shapes to each of like the different like qualities. Like you could play a chord like 1 4, one on the G string, 4 on the D string, and 2 on the A string. Gives you a minor chord, and then you can play a 2 5 G D. Yeah, and then 1 on C, 1 on G, 3 on D, 2 on A. So like sometimes I'll just do that, or for example, arpeggios too. I always know that 1 4 1 extended 4 1 extended 4 is always major, or that's a major minor. That's a minor. So like just being able to like I do think that learning the theory is very important, but being able to like relate it to like the cello and the way that it works, the technique, um, and also the like the different shapes and being able to like the hand shapes that you make when you play really helps a lot.
It sounds like you practice very intentionally. You know what I mean? Your brain is not daydreaming when you're practicing, right?
Well, surprisingly, my practicing is intentional, and it was intentional for a long time. But I'm in this like kind of like weird time where, I'm not practicing repertoire as much, and I do practice like excerpts occasionally, but I'm not really like I'm just kind of like just like finding out things on the cello, and for the most part, I do practice scales though. That's like the thing that I do practice the most intentionally though. But yeah, I would say like it's in the middle right now, for sure.
All right, all right. Well, that's still brings me back to that the thoughts going through my head while I'm doing a solo. So on that video, how how much experience had you had playing jazz solos on the cello by the time you did that video?
Hmm. So I've had a lot of experience like playing jazz piano before that.
Okay.
So And it's weird because once you learn how to like kind of improvise on one instrument that might not be your main instrument, it's kind of easier to improvise on another instrument that
Sure.
might be your main instrument. But yeah, that's besides the point. But I've been like kind of playing like jazz, like not that much actually. I mostly improvise to like popular music too, and that kind of actually helps because there's like some jazz idioms in there, and then being able, I would go to that. Sorry, I would go to the place that way I improvise that like every other Sunday because it happens on Sundays actually. It's actually happening now, but
All
yeah,
right.
it's actually happening right now. But they have jams, and I would go there with my cello, and everybody would just look at me like, "Who's this guy?" You know, like what's going on, right? And I would just start playing, and um, when I don't have the when I don't know the chart, sometimes I'll just kind of noodle, and then once I find the key, once I find know the scale that
Mhm.
I'm like that like oh that's the home key, then I just kind of go, um, and then like sometimes if you know like oh like 251 that's like most of the jazz, I just think in that, and then sometimes I'll take the scale that I'll do and just go a half step higher because like
Mhm.
I feel like the shapes on the like in jazz like the melodic and also like the scalar shapes are very like it fits on cello really well. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is funny. I'm gonna think about that some more. I mean, it's like there's times when, for example, if I try playing a transcription of a famous saxophone jazz solo on cello, it feels to me very awkward, you know? But again, those are made up of the shapes that work well on saxophone, you
yeah.
know? And I just you don't encounter out there in the literature as often those sorts of shapes that work well in the jazz idiom, but that also fit the cello idiom. I'm gonna
Mm.
think about that some more.
Actually, I feel like popper etudes do a little bit.
Huh.
Like I've heard some popper etudes, and I'm like, wait, this is kind of like a pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a octatonic scale. Like there's like stuff like that in there, and like you know, like I feel like the popper etudes kind of like you know, like they kind of shape your left hand to be able to
Yeah.
do like crazy things on the like. I need to go back to some popper etudes.
Yeah. And and
Yeah.
lo- and lots of seventh chords in there too. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
an interesting
seventh
point.
chords.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
s-
'cause especially like up here, like or like that just sounds like I don't know. I mean, like it's like F sharp minor. Sometimes I would just like literally take that etude and just jazzify it, and instead of
wing
playing
it.
that, I just play a minor seventh or something like that. But yeah, like actually, like Popper does do like it does have a lot of jazz idioms in there. It's kind of interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the questions I ask everybody motivating students when you have a student who either kind of for a fairly long stint or just on a particular day just needs a boost for motivating to play and to practice. What are some of your approaches that you find work well?
Keep yourself busy. That's something like always find something to improve on. Like for me right now, I'm like I'm trying to improve like tone quality, so that's why I do the open
Hmm.
strings exercises a lot. Um, if there's a specific piece that I want to learn, I'll just try like work on a specific part. Like just keep yourself busy. Like always be learning repertoire because um, it really does help you. And then also always like play for your friends.
Yeah.
Always play for people. I love performing. So like performing for people. I mean, even though it might be kind of nerve wracking sometimes, it does give you a sense of like, ooh, if I can do that, then I'm like, I don't know. It just helps me want to practice more, because it gives me a reason to want to practice. Is like if I know it's about to be performed, um, for sure. So
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So, jumping back just a little bit, do you tie in your composing to your improvising? You know, do you improvise and then think, "Oh wow, that's something I need to go write down," or do you sit down and think, "I'm going to compose a work for cello in this form," or what have you?
right, right. It depends. Like I feel like creating, um, especially like in any way, because I don't just also compose. I also produce. I do a lot of creative type of stuff. It's you kind of have to go in the mindset that I'm just gonna make something.
Hmm.
Like it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna. Um, you don't have to prepare for it. It has to be organic, kind of. So just like kind of make stuff, put stuff on the paper. Sometimes I know it's like hard because you're like, oh, I want it to be this, but the more you think about it, the like you're not gonna put anything on the paper. So just put notes down and see what works for you. I find that's how you find your own voice in the creative ways that you just it's all about self discovery for sure.
That's nice. That's inspiring too. I like that. Oh, so Ethan, what projects, what performances do you have yet this spring and summer? What's coming up?
Yeah, so I'm playing in a like Black History Month recital in April. It got delayed,
Okay.
unfortunately, but I'm playing William Grant Still Summerland, and I'm gonna be playing that. It's gonna be fun. I love that piece. It's such a beautiful. I found an arrangement on cello actually, and I played it in my recital, my senior recital. But I'm gonna be playing it again, and then I'm also just playing. I also play. Um, I also kind of have like a business type of thing where I just like play at events, and those just kind of, you know, if you want to follow my page, it's at eviolon cello, and it's that's where I post all my performances, and that's where you can like contact me because I do, you know, weddings, stuff like that, special events, and then also I also like my students perform, and then the Chicago Community West program, the Wish program. I do performances with them as well, and we do like not just classical stuff. We tie like even funk music. There's this really talented arranger named Jamal Crowder there, and he arranges like all the stuff himself, and they're really good arrangements. Like
Cool.
the arrangements have me like kind of like enjoying dancing. Like I mean, not dancing, but like I kind of want to dance to the music while I play it, you know. So it's like it's really awesome, and I enjoy doing that too. You play side by side. There's professionals too, but there's also like students, and you play side by side and kind of coach them and guide them, which is really awesome. So they perform at Garfield Park Conservatory. Not sure what date that is. I should know, but it's sometime in May. And then yeah, there's I'm always like performing. I'm always trying to find new things to make. Right now, I'm not really making anything, but we'll see. We'll see.
All
Because
right.
I do do like I make like popular songs into like cello covers and stuff, and that's one of the things I really love to do as well. It's fun.
We're hoping you do a lot more of those. If insofar as you do them right over the border in Wisconsin, we'll be watching them.
Oh yes, of course, of course. I don't have I been to Wisconsin before?
Oh, we
I
have
don't
to
know if I
have you up.
have.
We have to
Yeah,
find.
yeah. I would love
Yes.
to, visit one time. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We'll figure something out, that's for sure.
of course, of course.
All right. Well, Ethan, this has been really fun, and I wish you the best of luck. I mean, it's like it's so always so cool to see people who clearly are just as passionate about music as I know I am, you know,
Well,
and just have fun playing music. I have to admit, I personally, I kind of wince a little bit when I see people who are playing music, but they don't look like they're having any fun playing music. I'm like, what are you doing if you're not having fun?
right, you're supposed to feel the music, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. All right, so I look forward to seeing where your bright future takes you, and thanks for sharing the inspiring words.
Of course, and thank you for having me. And I would love to be back, and I would love to meet you in person one day for sure.
Cool. We will definitely figure something out to get you up over the border into Wisconsin.
Of course, of course.
All right, and everybody out there, happy practicing all week. We'll see you back here this same time next week. Take care.
You had me at Cello.